All right, let's go ahead and hop in. I hope everyone can see my screen okay. There's actually a Q&A bar at the top if you look up and just kind of scroll over there. Just if somebody wouldn't mind just letting me know that the technical issues were coming from my Zoom here. So can somebody just confirm that they can see the full screen and not presenter view right now? Just type it in the Q&A. All right, perfect. It looks like we can see the whole presentation. If anybody else can't for any reason. Okay, perfect. All right, again, thanks for the patience. Little technical bumps there, but let's go ahead and get started. So thanks everyone for joining us. This is my battery 101. So basically we're gonna talk today a little bit about the company itself, some basics, some of the products that we offer. Okay, perfect. Just making sure everybody says they can see it. All right. And then we're going to kind of jump into some very, very kind of light sales stuff, as well as some installation and a few different things like that. So bear with me. So there is a lot of slides on this presentation, so you might see me jump over some a little quickly. If there's anything that I brush over that you might want to hear more about later, definitely reach out to me. Okay, so just to kind of get started here, a little timeline of SimpliPhi Power. We actually started in 2010 as OES Energy. We originally started really looking at a problem that we saw, which was replacement of lead acids, and looking at how we could find a clean, safe lithium battery chemistry. It wasn't something that was offered very often or really at all, and we were trying our best to come up with a solution. In 2011 to 2012, we had the opportunity to actually work with the US Department of Defense, where we were able to basically prove our batteries out and show that our lithium technology was safe, reliable, and we actually had no failures during this time. So that was a really good opportunity for us. From there, we had product line expansion. We actually relaunched as SimpliPhi Power in 2015, and we've continued. Okay, so now somebody is saying they can see the presenter mode. Is that true? Okay, let me take a look here. Let me fix that. 1 second. This is the issue we were having earlier, which has been a bit of a problem. Let me see if I can get that to work here. 1 second here. Okay. Can anyone confirm that's better now? You do not see the presenter's view anymore and you're actually seeing full screen? Okay, somebody's still saying it's still there. Richard, can you confirm? Are you seeing presenter's view right now? Okay. Give me a second then. Let me try to fix this, everybody. I do apologize. This is something I was struggling with earlier. For some reason, it just doesn't want to play nice today. Okay. How about now? That's I think that's the last opportunity I have. All right, cool. Well, there we go. I think I figured out the glitch here that's going on. Let me just get rid of all these comments. We'll hop right back in. Okay. All right. So back to the presentation here. So around 2017, 2020, we've really started to ramp up manufacturing of our various products and really where we manufacture as well. So we actually, I'll skip over the next slide. It's not super relevant, but actually, if you look here, we actually manufacture in the United States, which is pretty rare for most companies these days. And we have had the opportunity to really kind of use that to control our own manufacturing and actually build up our manufacturing facility as we want. So kind of the overview of our company is safe, proven, and simple technology. Safe as it's non-toxic, non-hazardous, cobalt-free chemistry, which really takes away the risk of thermal runaway. I think most people know this by now. It's not really new news at this point. It's really where the trend is going. UL certification doesn't really matter here in Australia so much. The UN DOT stuff does, though, as it pertains to shipping, which we do have special permission actually to ship from the FAA. So we can definitely get batteries a little bit quicker over planes. We've done over 100 megawatt hours installed in 40 countries over the last 10 years. I'd say that number is probably pretty low at this point. It's got to be much higher than that by now. And we try to keep things as simple as possible and really keep our products in a simple manner that, if you're picking one product, you are getting something that you can work with and not something overly complicated. So really the main factors we see as driving factors for batteries in general is escalating energy cost. So, in the US, at least, I'm sure it's the same over in Australia as well, but we are seeing increasing demands. And I think that's really true for all over the world. We're seeing increasing energy rates. Just looking at the last 10 years, 15% in the US. So really people are starting to look towards energy or financial energy security. How can they secure the rate in with something like a battery, which kind of allows you to maintain that. Other things to consider: failing infrastructure, and this could relate to looking at more people going off grid versus still plenty of people that are on grid that are having to deal with failing infrastructure constantly, and of course decarbonization and cutting down on greenhouse gases. Some other kind of applications that we see, and again, these are not everywhere. I know, at least in the US, this is a big time of use. Time of use is slowly kind of taking over around the world. I've noticed it's the idea that the electricity company can charge more at a certain time in order to, basically, hey, you're home between 8 in the morning and 9 in the morning getting ready for work. Well, we're going to charge you the most during that time. So a battery can really kind of mitigate that, as well as these peak demand charges, and really just looking at integrated solar plus storage as a whole, and how that really holds up on the resiliency side of things. Okay, so just again, with the chemistry, we use lithium iron phosphate. So if you're comparing that to other types of chemistries, and if you're comparing that to other lithium battery manufacturers, lithium iron phosphate is the only one that is non-cobalt based that you'll see around really in this kind of scale of batteries. When it comes to lithium, it is not prone to thermal runaway, non-toxic. That kind of cuts down on this ventilation and cooling requirements, and actually allows us to withstand some pretty high temperatures without a lot of ancillary equipment or safety monitoring equipment, a lot of components that are prone to fail eventually. So again, we use, just to slide right through that, lithium iron phosphate, and actually manufacture with a cylindrical form factor, in case you want to dive a little bit deeper into the internal workings of the battery. As far as warranty goes, our warranty's changed a little bit lately. 10 years, unlimited cycles now. So regardless of depth of discharge, we're talking 10 years, unlimited cycles. It just makes things easier. That being said, you will see longer lifespan out of a battery that, let's say, you're using 80% depth of discharge. You're going to see longer life out of that battery beyond the warranty period. But as far as the warranty is concerned, that 10-year mark, you can use the batteries between 80 and 100% depth of discharge. I apologize. This is still in Fahrenheit. I had to redid everything for Celsius and metric earlier, but it seems to have not crossed over when I was having some issues here. But I'll give you it. So operating temperature, don't really worry about operating temperature. It's not that important. That's discharge and standby. Most batteries, we want to look at charging temperature. This is the important window. This is 32 degrees Fahrenheit to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, or 0C to 49 C. So that's really the temperature window we stick within. So we can handle some pretty high temperatures and fairly low. Definitely low has been a bit more of a challenge than the high temperatures. And, as far as the high stuff goes, getting even close to that 40 C, it's really, it's really not, it's something we've tested and proven actually, which is, hard to say with most companies, but we've really seen our batteries strive in 110 even without much issue. Okay, each of our batteries comes with an integrated battery management system. We're going to talk a little bit about this because it has changed a little bit, but just know that our standard Phi battery has an internal only BMS, so it has no connection to the inverter. It doesn't need it. It's a little bit more of a simple design, which the good news is a little less expensive that way, as well as, frankly, it's just a little bit easier when it comes to things like lead acid replacements and stuff like that. It's just a quick, easy solution. The BMS is very basic in this case, analog BMS. It does do things like overcurrent, short circuit, and charge and discharge protection, but really that's on a very light level compared to our newest battery, which we'll talk about there lately. So this one does still require certain sizing requirements because you can't necessarily rely on the BMS too much to do these protections. It's more there to do basic functions like cell balancing. Okay, our batteries are also rated for C/2. This can mean two things. It means that we rate all of our capacities at C/2. So, if you're looking at lead acids, you might be looking at like C/20 for ratings. We do rate at C/2, as well as it also relates to the maximum charge and discharge of the battery. So you can charge and discharge at a C/2 rate. So meaning if you've got a 3.8 kilowatt hour SimpliPhi battery, you can do 1.9 continuous in or out of the battery. It does have more surge capacity. That's actually 80 amps DC per battery. But as far as the just continuous, C/2 is the way to go. So that's kind of the limits of the battery. But it opens up a lot of doors when it comes to looking at things like off-grid systems. Especially, I always see like if you've got a big PV array, you can use a lot of that PV array during the day. And charge up that battery quickly. And maybe you don't have a lot of sun hours at one day, you can still get that charge with the larger array. Scalability and expandability. Let's jump right ahead. I'll just kind of jump into this. As far as scalability goes, we have really no limit when it comes to our standard Phi battery. Now, I'm going to talk about products here coming up in a second. And our newest product, the AmpliFi, does have a limit to how many it can be put into parallel. However, our standard Phi battery does not have a limit. I've seen some pretty large systems. Expandability is also really cool. We actually have the ability, you can go ahead and, let's say 3 years later, a customer needs to add more storage to an existing system. You can add on new batteries to an old bank. I will warn you right now, the warranty always reverts to the oldest battery in the system. However, this is a really big benefit for people maybe that are, a little tight on cash or just want to start out low and then build up a house or something like that. So they can actually go back and expand later. These batteries also have a very low self-discharge rate and virtually no maintenance whatsoever. So, looking at like a lead acid battery where you're doing venting and off-gassing, and even honestly, some cobalt-based lithium batteries that require certain maintenance on the coolant systems I've seen over time. These batteries are virtually have no maintenance whatsoever. So always like to show some examples of, before and after, especially when it comes to the lead acid. This system here having all these lead acid batteries and just replaced with 5 of our standard Phi batteries. This one actually here on the right has more available capacity, has, basically it's more energy dense and has more power available. Okay, so let's hop right into products. So what do we have here at SimpliPhi Power? Our most popular product, definitely what you're going to see as far as what is located in Australia, if you're down there, is going to be a lot of the 3.8 kilowatt hour standard Phi batteries. Still, biggest seller to date. This is where that 100 megawatt hour number, most of those are going to come from this battery right here. Comes in 24 volts and 48 volts, simple parallel connections. Really, looking at this battery is just as simple as it gets, but also kind of still gets that benefit of a lithium battery. So it's very easy to install. They're fairly light to carry around. I think they're like in the 70 pounds. So, in battery terms, I'd call it light. It's just a great overall battery, and it's definitely been the cornerstone of a lot of our products for a while now. We also offer some smaller products. Scale, these smaller 1.4 kilowatt hour battery comes in 12 and 24 volts. This is small, lightweight. I see it a lot for mobile applications. We're talking 33 pounds per battery, so it is fairly small, and actually has Anderson connectors and these, or you could get it with bare wires. So that's kind of a nice benefit when you're looking at, like, let's say in a mobile application, that can really help you out where you don't have those exposed terminals. I'll skip over these ones. They're not super important, but just know we do have these smaller kind of portable packs. We don't really ship a ton of those overseas. We don't really ship a lot of these either, so I'll skip right through the Express. I will talk about the Access, though. The Access, I think, is important. This is our all-in-one unit. I see a lot of units being put together just like our Access as well when we don't ship to those areas. But looking at, we do work with companies like Solarc and Schneider and build out these all-in-one units with batteries, chargers, all built into this NEMA 3 enclosure. We also offer high voltage products. This is anything from like microgrid applications to large scale 40 volt 3-phase. These are batteries that come with an external BMS, a stack controller. It can be stacked up from 200 to 1,100 VDC nominal. And then from there, you can parallel out those stacks. So again, this is for larger scale stuff, really anything where you really need to back up some large, let's say like a grocery store or something like that. Or again, microgrids, I see these being used a lot. They can be containerized, and they actually come standard with CAN bus, Modbus, and Ethernet connections ready to go. Okay, and our newest battery. This is our AmpliFi battery. It is very similar if you're looking at the very upfront specs here. It's still a 3.8 kilowatt hour battery. Dimensions are about the same as the 3.8. The weight's almost the exact same too. The discharge is a little bit higher, as the max discharge, that surge capacity, is 100 amps DC. The big difference here is it has closed loop communications with the inverter. So we're working on integrating more and more inverters into this. Currently, it's just with the Solarc, but we have SMA very shortly after that, and then Outback and Schneider and Victron soon to follow as well. So when it is connected to an inverter it communicates with, it has auto-populated set points. It can do high-level protection. It actually has the ability, if you're familiar at all with our sizing guidelines, which we will talk about later, it has the ability to do smaller battery to inverter capabilities, meaning you could have like one battery on a large inverter because of its communication capabilities. It also does high-level accuracy readings like state of charge, voltage, charge and discharge. This does have a limit, though, of 40 battery modules. And that's just due to the interconnection comm cables and the actual ability to transmit data over that length. Over voltage protection, again, over discharge. I mean, these are the kind of nitty gritty stuff. I won't bore you too much with that or the set points, but just know that it does have the ability to basically go all in one. It actually can program the inverter. I think the important thing to really consider, let me go back one, is that the AmpliFi is a true closed loop communication battery. That means that it is telling the inverter what to do, not the other way around. It's not necessarily just reporting itself to the inverter. It is truly telling it what to do, and it's communicating with other batteries within the bank. So the good news is, if you're programming this thing, all you do is plug it in and it auto selects everything for you. It can even determine bank size and a bunch of other stuff. It actually auto calculates like max charge and discharge, and that's why we can actually have that flexible sizing as well. So I won't bore you too much with these options, but just know that we do have options for the AmpliFi, both with ESS cabinets, so energy storage solutions, within the cabinet with an inverter, or again, just by itself, which we have more and more inverters that we will be pairing up with. Currently, it's just the Solar, but I believe SMA is hopefully in the next couple of weeks here, and then Victron not too far to follow. Okay. I'm just gonna, I know we're all a little short on time, unfortunately, because of me. I got a little started late there and couldn't get this thing to work here. But let's do levelized cost of energy very quickly, as I think it's always important to look at. And that's just really, when looking at cost of batteries and comparing cost of batteries, I think it's really important to understand that it's not just, looking at upfront costs. It's looking at, what is the cost of the lifetime of the battery? And how do you compare that to another battery? The good news is we've taken this calculation that's pretty typical in the industry, and we've actually put it into a calculator. Unfortunately, I think, let me see, because of my screen, it might not work here. Oh, there it goes. So we do have a calculator actually built on our website where you can type in all these various costs. You can say, hey, I pay this much for the LG. I pay this much for the SimpliPhi, and type in a few different parameters there, and it'll actually give you that cost, that levelized cost of energy, which is a really good tool to show customers, especially customers that might want to look at longevity of the battery versus just that upfront. So I've done these, various different calculations using batteries that might come out a little cheaper in the beginning, and we tend to come out cheaper overall as we have a very long lifespan of warranty and really stick with that. So you'll find, once you start digging through other companies' warranties, you're going to find some pretty troubling things every now and again where you didn't know that one company doesn't warranty more than 3,000 cycles and stuff like that. So that's kind of my preach on sales, but we'll jump right into some battery sizing, which is really on the design side, and then installation stuff. So as far as battery sizing goes, I kind of mentioned already that our warranty is 10 years, unlimited cycles now. But that being said, there's still going to be kind of, there's certain situations where you might want to use 80% depth of discharge over 100%. And that really goes beyond the warranty itself. So, this is what we would basically, this is kind of a speculation of cycles at certain depths of discharge. It used to be more tied to the warranty itself, but now it's more just related to what you would expect to see. So if you're looking at, a customer maybe that's, let's say, off grid, I would always recommend 80% depth of discharge. Don't go lower than that. You're going to want to, expand the cycles that customer can receive out of the battery. Now, if you've got a customer that's just using battery backup, it might make a lot more sense in that case to go with 90 or 100% depth of discharge. Maybe they're not cycling every day. Maybe they don't require as many cycles over the lifetime of the battery. So typically my kind of rule of thumb when it comes to kind of considering your depth of discharge is I always say, look at the mode of operation. What is the customer using the battery for? And do they, are they discharging and charging every day? Are they not going to require that many cycles, and kind of play it by that? When in doubt, though, 80% is kind of my go-to. So the battery should be sized to twice the inverter's output capability. This I cannot stress enough. Now, I mentioned the AmpliFi already. The AmpliFi battery, the one with closed loop communications, has the ability to get around this. But when it comes to our standard Phi batteries, this is a big requirement. So basically meaning, if you've got, like here in this picture, an 8,000 watt radian here, the minimum battery quantity needs to be twice that. So 16 kilowatt hours of battery. So that way there's no potential for over discharge. And I see it all the time where an installer will put a big 8,000 watt radian in, put like 2 batteries on the system, and the customer has certain loads. They leave for, months and months, and the customer adds loads, and the battery gets damaged and it's not covered under warranty. So it's just super important. Just size correctly and you'll never have a problem with that. It's really easy. And, we have tons of different tools actually that go through sizing. We've got some basic sizing tools based on kilowatt hour capacity, or sorry, kilowatt hours and what the customer is using. We've got some more advanced tools that go into things like inverter and charge controller sizing. And even if you're looking to replace lead acid batteries, we have that tool too. But I can't stress that the importance of that enough. It is really important when it comes to sizing, that we just follow that guideline. And again, does not apply for the AmpliFi, just to the Phi batteries. All right, I'm going to give our other trainer a little grief on this one, but he wrote this slide, finance your power. I know it's a little cheesy, but it works. So just so you know, if we are looking at customers that are in need of financing, we actually offer 3 types of financing through these different partners for our batteries. Mosaic, you might have heard of them. Tesla, I believe, has used them for years and years and years. They have some pretty good options here for customers that don't need to pay right up front, can actually wait about a year and a half to actually make that first payment. LoanPal, and these are, most of these, I've looked into this a little bit this morning. Most of these are universal, so meaning, you know, wherever you are, you can still apply for these, but there also obviously might be more local stuff that makes more sense. LoanPal, however, though, again, we're integrated into that. And then my favorite, Sunlight Financial, which actually has the ability to, as a contractor, where you can kind of set up all the financing for your customers. They don't have to go and apply themselves. That way you can actually kind of get these options in front of them right in their homes for the battery itself. And you can actually bundle the system all together as well. So just a kind of snippet there. I think it's really becoming important, you know, especially, you know, if you're going up against big, you know, the big guys like, you know, these large solar companies maybe, or battery companies that are offering kind of these monthly payments. It's important to look at how to offer customers financing. And we try to add more and more on. If you've got something that you use for financing through various solar components and we're not listed on that, you can always reach out to us. We're happy to work on getting added to that. It's pretty straightforward most of the time. So whatever helps, you know, win that sale and make sure that customers have access to these batteries without needing to, you know, drop a lot of cash right out of the gate. Okay. Installation. I've got this, and then just a little bit regarding, I know I've kind of flown through this trying to play catch up, which is good. So we can probably pump the brakes just a little bit. We're going to go through installation here, and then really we're going to talk about the access, but I'll probably skip over those slides. It's just not very relevant. And I know we have a lot of people, the DPA is invited from Australia, and we just don't ship those access out there. It is possible, and we have shipped pretty far, but it's a little costly. So for the most part, our standard batteries are what you're going to find in Australia. And the good news is Richard keeps a nice stock of those from DPA, so they are available. But the access, not so much. So you might see me skip over a few of those slides. As far as installation goes, if you're looking for anything, manual spec sheets, and most importantly, integration guides, under our website, under product documentation, you'll find all that. We typically do not ship batteries with installation manuals and things like that. We try to keep it a little paperless. So you got to pull that off the internet typically. The most important one I find is right here, integration guides. So let's say you're installing with an Outback system and you just need to learn you want to know the exact setup for Outback. Well, and I'll show you here in a little bit, but we basically take the exact language that these inverter charger companies use, and we fill out all the settings for our batteries. So we try to make it as easy as possible. You can download the straight, just normal, standard SimpliPhi manual, but it's not going to have as much detailed information as these integration guides. If you're receiving our batteries, probably see something that looks about like this. So it's always important to check the batteries for damage. I always check the breaker. That's a good indicator if there's damage, if it might have been dropped. You know, once it leaves our facility, we're kind of out of luck when it comes to shipping. I'd always check with a distributor too when it comes to that stuff. And it's never a bad idea to take a multimeter to the battery. Also check the nameplate, make sure it is the correct voltage that you ordered. Is never a bad idea as well. Okay, as far as mounting goes, we have virtually no clearance requirements. What that means is the batteries can sit basically flush up against each other. Now you can see in this picture we're using the standard phi brackets. So these are actually coming from SimpliPhi, these brackets. And these brackets are great, but you cannot put the batteries right up against each other. So there are tons of different options. We don't really care so much. That's the good news. We don't, void warranties over where the battery is placed for the most part. Obviously, you want somewhere dry, and you don't, nowhere where water is getting in or other elements like that. But as far as, if you want to put on a rack, a battery box, and even you can turn the batteries sideways if you want. So we have a lot of kind of leeway when it comes to orientation and clearance on the batteries. Wiring methods, important to kind of keep in mind. We do things a little different. If you're used to other batteries or even lead acids, you probably are used to, terminal jumping from post to post to post up to a common connection point. Same thing with the negative. We really want to do same length, same size cables, all going to a common connection point. Now, I'm not sure if I have the slide in here. I don't. So just to keep in mind, we also are totally okay with terminal bus bars. So if you've got bus bars going across the terminals, and then the connection points from there going out to wherever you're landing, your inverter or your combiner or whatever it might be, that is okay as well. Really, this method, sorry to jump back and forth there. One last thing, this method really does help ensure that the efficiency of the battery is met where it should be, and that the power is charged and discharged evenly and keeps the bank nice and even. If you're building larger systems, you might be using things like battery combiner boxes, tons of different ones on the market. I don't really care which one people use. I mean, all we're talking about here is copper, insulated box and some copper. As long as it's rated for it, it's really okay with me. I don't see much of a difference when it comes to these battery combiner boxes. But if you are building larger systems, you oftentimes might be using those. DC versus AC coupled batteries don't really care too much. Ignore, these are actually not micro inverters. They're just rapid shutdown compliant components for fire safety. But, here we have the batteries going into a charge controller. The Solarc actually has one built in, charging the batteries. You've got your critical loads panel, your main loads panel, and your grid. If you were off grid, you would just cut out this portion here. But really, again, the batteries don't necessarily care so much whether they're DC coupled or AC coupled. So, you're AC coupled, let's say, the setup's a little different on this side of things. But again, as far as the batteries care, as long as they're, hooked up to the proper converter or inverter and charge controller, it doesn't really matter too much. Okay, a little bit of added, this slide's a little out of place, but just, as far as wiring goes, also look at the parallel wiring here. I think this is kind of the realistic photo when you're actually on site and things are a little tighter. This closet's a little tight, but you can see here where this installer ran to a combiner box. So combining all these batteries and then running out to these various outback radians. You'll see this customer actually has surge protectors and breakers in the box. It is not a requirement in the US. I know there are some more stringent requirements in Australia where you do require certain breaks there as well. So there is a breaker on the battery, but there's also a breaker. You could always put a breaker in line as well if need be. Torque specifications, don't worry too much about values. Again, my apologies there, but just keep in mind the most important thing when it comes to torquing the batteries is to use a proper torque wrench. I can't stress this enough. I get a lot of calls, people that, kind of go around the idea, oh, I use the proper torque wrench. I did. And then sure enough, they finally come to terms with the fact they use maybe an impact driver or something and snap the battery terminals. So it's just important to use a proper torque wrench, and also make sure your torque wrench is calibrated correctly. So I mentioned integration guides earlier. This side right here, this is actually a little bit out of one of our integration guides. So you can see this is out of the Schneider integration guide, actually, where again, we're just calling out their specific kind of, hey, this is what they call it. They call it the absorbed voltage, they call it back capacity, and exactly what we would want that setting to look like. So always pull those from the websites. They are definitely updated a lot. So it's important to always kind of pull the most recent version, but you'll definitely always find kind of exactly what you need. If there's anything that you're not finding, that it's probably not super related to the battery, but if you have any questions that are not in these integration guides and setting up a system, you can always call us. We have most settings, like is it 2-stage versus 3-stage, the basic settings like absorb, bulk, float, low battery cutout, max charge rate, and really kind of, various settings as well, like advanced, cell, AGS. Those are a bit more suggestions oftentimes. But, we do kind of give guidelines on those as well. I think one of the most important low battery cutout settings, you'll also find those in the guides. Okay. And so again, I'm going to hop over this actually, because again, I know Richard invited, the point of this was try to reach our friends in Australia. And I know a lot of access do not go that way. So our all-in-one unit, just so you kind of know, it is all-in-one, NEMA 3R rated. So outdoor rated, at least here in the US. I know there's actually a bit more of a stringent rating in Australia for outdoors, but it is inverter, charger, and batteries all built into it. So again, I'll skip over them. They're really not super relevant if you're not buying them, but just know that they do come in 2 different types, the Schneider and the Solarc currently. We used to sell the Outback one, but we have not sold that one for a little bit now. All right, last thing I want to mention. And again, I just really appreciate everyone jumping on and waiting. A little technical difficulties. This is actually not even the slides that I modified some slides specific for this with some more information regarding DPA as well. So Richard, I really appreciate you getting everybody on. Apologies for all the confusion. Just so everybody knows that we do have DPA as our main distributor in Australia. I know a lot of you probably already work with him, with Richard, and with the rest of the team at DPA. So they do stock our batteries, and they are, I believe, the only one that stocks our batteries. So they're definitely our main hub when it comes to buying SimpliPhi batteries. That being said, too, if you are already installing our batteries, especially if you're in Australia, please sign up for our qualification program. It's not a requirement to install our batteries, but really an added benefit when it comes to kind of getting more visibility. So we have a where to buy page where we have little pins. And if you go through the program and you've already installed our batteries, you can actually get a little pin where people will see your company as somebody that has gone through this qualification program and we know and is trusted to install the batteries. So customers will come through that. Your distributors will definitely, hopefully, push you to sign up for that program, as it gives them more visibility as well as they come to you after they get the sale. But we've got tons of customers every single day cruising our website, checking out where to buy these batteries. And if you're on that page, you're very first person they're going to go to. And really the only people that we suggest are if we either pass it off to a distribution partner or an IQ installer. So if you want to, if you're already installing our batteries or you plan to be installing our batteries soon, join this program. Links right here, actually. You can find on our page under support and the IQ training qualification program. It's super easy. It takes like 10 minutes, very easy to fill out. Again, if you've already installed 2 systems of our batteries, I would fill this out right away. It's really easy. Matt or myself or one of our other team members will get back to you and get you all set up for the program. It's pretty straightforward. So again, I just want to thank everybody for being patient there. I know we probably lost a good chunk of people waiting for the technical difficulties. And again, Richard, I want to thank you for making some invites here and kind of bearing with me even through these slides that don't mention everything I wanted to. I do have some time here. I know everybody's probably, we're right at the hour where we wanted to be, but if anyone's got any questions, there is the Q&A bar at the top. So feel free to type in any questions now to that. If you do not have any questions right now, you can always reach me at training@SimpliPhiPower.com. Happy to answer any questions that come through there as well. I see one comment. I think it's just a comment maybe. Once you give us torque specs, and they were in there, those torque specs, 160 inch-pounds. So those of us under the NEC must use an approved method of torquing to your specs. Yeah. What is the minimum charge rate? Good question. There really is none. And I think that sometimes is kind of confusing when looking, especially if you're used to lead acid batteries. But really, as far as like trickle charge goes, it doesn't matter so much. And the batteries are not going to be damaged by a low state of charge. I will say that it's going to be harder to charge them oftentimes. And they definitely want to see a little bit of something to get going. But I've seen, let's say our 75 amp hour battery being charged with like a 3 amp charger, and it works just fine. All right, well, if there's no other questions, again, I just want to appreciate everybody waiting around. Hopefully the next time we set this up, no more technical difficulties on my end. Working from home does have its challenges every now and again, I guess. But I appreciate everybody hopping on. If there's any other questions that come up, just reach out to me at training@SimpliPhiPower.com. All right, thank you, everybody.